I've been thinking a lot lately about the so-called circle of life. Maybe because as I get older, I realize I'm getting to the top of the circle or the bottom of the circle, not sure which way. But life is all about beginnings and endings. We've seen it all. It's about the things we do well, what we thought we could do better. It's about sharing in the baptism of a new baby. It's about saying goodbye to maybe your brother, your sister, your mom or your dad or your grandma. It's about feeling young, feeling old. It's an incredible circle. Sometimes we're happy with our circle, and sometimes it makes us angry. And yet it's in this circle of life that's where we discover the power and the presence of God. And the good stuff and the bad stuff. On a personal note, some of the people that I married years ago, I'm now doing their funerals. The kids in my very first confirmation class are well into their 50s by now. And I think of people, what they go through. I think of our friend Vern Bach at the 8:30 service, this 3-year journey with cancer and wounds and in and out of the hospital. And he finally got back for hopefully the last time. He's home. I think of Calvin, went in for back spasms and found cancer in 3 places. But he was here at the early service, a little thinner, a little weaker, but he wants your prayers bad. I had to, I look at my son and he looks me straight in the eye now. I wonder where the time has gone. Anyway, I had a funeral yesterday for another unknown person. And I looked over the crowded funeral parlor. Wait a minute, does saying funeral parlor make me sound old? Well, anyway, I was looking over the funeral parlor, and I was feeling a little bit honest, and so I said, those of you gathered here, you look at me like, who is this guy? And I said, you're probably wondering what you're going to get. And I said, it may not be much, but you're stuck with me and I'm stuck with you. And together we're bound together by that spirit that God gives us. So I don't believe in strangers. I believe there's a reason that we're together today. And then I called upon the son to do the eulogy. I've heard lots of eulogies. This was one of the most powerful speeches I've heard in a long time. It sounded like he went to the same dysfunctional seminary that I did. I guess that's why I liked him. He talked about his mom not being a churchgoer. He talked about her not having a lot of money, just living off the pension of her deceased husband. And he said when she got sick and he had to kind of take over her finances, he went through her checkbook. And she wrote all kinds of checks for $5 and $10 to every possible cause there was. And then there were those checks made out to cash, where she would cash the check and send $5 and $10 bills to her nieces and nephews and to her grandkids. And he said, my mom, her life was just full of random acts of kindness. And so at the end he said, if you want to honor my mom, the next time you see a Girl Scout selling cookies outside the Jewel, why don't you buy a box? The next time you think about that person you haven't called in 3 or 4 months, why don't you make that call? The next time you're walking into a building, why don't you hold the door for the 2 or 3 people behind you? Next time you're getting something at the counter, put a couple extra bucks in the tip jar. When you see somebody sitting alone, looking lonely in the corner of a restaurant, when you get up to go to the washroom, walk by that person and kind of nod and say, have a nice day. And suddenly this guy's mom just came to life. It's like her spirit filled the room. And after the service, I go up to the son and I said, I came here today just to do my job. And I said, thanks to you and your mom, I'm leaving a better person. Because you have taught me a lot about life. And in the Bible study Wednesday, we came upon the passage from Matthew 26 where Jesus comes back and he divides the people into the righteous and the unrighteous. And the righteous are all the people that did all the right things, supposedly, went to the temple every week. On the other side were kind of like people like me. You can get your ball later, relax. And they're the ones that maybe didn't go to church and didn't feel good about themselves. And then Jesus said to the unrighteous, "You come with me. You're going to follow me into the kingdom." And they said, "Why us? We're not saved. We're not your people." And Jesus, "Hey, when I was a stranger, you embraced me. When I was hungry, you fed me. When I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. When there was somebody you didn't know and needed help, you put some money in the love bucket. When there was a kid who couldn't pay to go to camp, you paid his way." And they said, "Well, wait a minute. We didn't do anything like that for you." And Jesus said, "Whenever you do something to the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you're actually doing it to me. I want to welcome you into my kingdom." You see, that's religion. It's not Christian. It's not Jewish. It's not Unitarian. It's not Buddhist. It's being a good human being. You can't capture that on a sign. It's about the way you walk and about the way you live and about the way you handle life's ordinary moments. Anybody can say and believe the right thing, but to live it and to breathe it, that's what Jesus wants us to do. You know, I'm constantly stunned and inspired by some of the stuff you people are involved in. Those quiet acts of courage that you do unto others that nobody else knows about except you. My gosh, some of you make blankets for veterans and you bring them to Mantino and you don't say anything about it. Some of you rescue pets and you have cats and dogs in your living room to find a home and you say nothing about it. Some of you go bald to raise money for your friend who's living with cancer. And who would ever thought that selling bras and collecting them in a church would free some kid and some young lady from sex trafficking and give them a chance to put their life back together? Who would think that a center that started after all those kids were hurt at Sandy Hook is just as busy today, 5 years later, as they were the week after all that thing happened? Because people care, but they don't talk about what they do. You see, when I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. When I was a captive, you went to church and asked them to collect bras, put money in a wooden bucket, so somehow, some way, me and my mom could be set free. When a kid couldn't afford to go on a retreat, you paid that person's way. But Jesus, we didn't do that for you and to you. Oh, yes, you did. Because in all those things you do, without notice or recognition, that's precisely where I live every single day. Amen. If you're able to, please rise for the creed. It's on page 105.